TCG History video is going to be a little different than usual. Typically we do things with very well-researched, focused scripting so we can in-depth talk about a specific dead card game, but instead we're going to be taking a more general look at something because I've been really obsessed with this topic lately and I just need to get it out of my system. So today we're going to explain the differences between the smorgasbord of different Dragon Ball card games, because they can get seriously confusing for anyone looking to collect Dragon Ball cards or rediscover that one game they remember playing 20 years ago. I got really obsessed with this because I did a video recently where I unboxed a starter deck for the Dragon Ball Z trading card game, which before opening I mistakenly believed was for the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game, which is also not to be confused with the Dragon Ball collectible card game. I told you it was confusing. In that video I said, hey, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm pretty novice to this. I've only ever played the Dragon Ball Super card game. Everything before is new territory for me. And in that period since that video, I've done a ton of research and I just want to clear up the misconceptions about which Dragon Ball card game is which. So we're going to take a look at each of them in chronological order and talk about what makes them special. We are also only discussing English released games, since if we were to cover Japanese titles, we'd be stuck neck deep in card-ass sets until the end of time. And besides, the English games are where all the spicy drama is. So you would think that we would start with the first Dragon Ball game that people would actually remember, this one. But no, first we have to talk about the absolute meme that is the ani-mayhem card game. If you've never heard of ani-mayhem, well, honestly, I'm not really surprised. It was a partnership between card game publisher Upper Deck and Pioneer starting in 1996. You see, Pioneer owned the rights to a ton of anime, which was a newly booming thing in 1996, though it was still really early for it as a fandom here in the West. So they had the humongous big brain idea of taking all of the anime that they had licensed to, very popular stuff like Ranma and a Half and Tenchi Muyo, and put them in a card game together where you could play, mix and match with different IPs. The concept was brilliant. Take all the anime that they had and make a card game out of it. It's an anime crossover game, which might sound familiar to any of those out there who are familiar with later games, because later games would directly take this exact approach. Obviously, there's Versus System, which was made by Upper Deck 8 years later, but there's also the ever-popular games like Weiss-Schwarz, which straight up uses the exact same formula, or UFS. In that way, it was really ahead of its time. The only problem is that it's really bad. Not only are the cards ugly as hell, but it was also designed quite poorly. First, it relies heavily on giving characters a laundry list of specific attributes as its primary form of depth, something that has never worked out well for a card game. I personally call it the Simpsons card game problem. Anyone remember the Simpsons card game? Oh man. Seriously though, I really hate when card games rely too heavily on attributes. Honestly, that should be the 8th sin of game design. It never works out. Another issue is that they were extremely inconsistent with gameplay terms. Some abilities would be labeled as one thing for cards from one anime, and then another thing completely for cards from a different anime, despite being the same ability. And the gameplay rules were sort of refined as time went on. By the time set 2, which is actually the 3rd set, and the only set with Dragon Ball characters in it, came out, the errata list for cards was longer than the actual rulebook. It's not surprising that that was the last set. Okay, one more note about ani-mayhem before we get to the stuff you actually came here for. See the stats along the side of a character card? Most are pretty normal. Power, defense, whatnot. But this one here, that's seduction. That's right, we now know that Piccolo is a 2 on the sexiness scale, thanks to this game. I suppose they had to give some stat to all the waifus in the game, something they'd be good at, but straight up calling it seduction is amazing. Okay. Now we move on to the most iconic game of the lineup, the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game. This game released in 2000 during the massive trading card game boom that happened at that time. If you want to know more about that in general, you can check out the TCG timeline video I did where I separated everything into eras. Yeah, cool plug. It's made by Score, who made some really iconic games in the early 2000s like Bleach or Dragon Booster, before being absorbed into the massive sports card empire of Panini. But DBZ CCG is definitely their most popular work. Definitely not the Sonic X card game. That's just awful. It was very successful during its 5-year run, consistently selling as one of the biggest card games alongside Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! It developed a very active competitive scene, and even had a Game Boy Advance adaptation. Towards the end of its life, Score fully rebranded the game to tie into the currently airing Dragon Ball GT anime. Some people consider the Dragon Ball GT card game to be a fully separate game, but the cards are fully compatible with each other, and there wasn't a gap between releases. GT sets released with no pause from the previous version, so I do consider them to be one game. Overall, the GT release would do not as well, but it would get a decent number of sets before ending its own run in 2006. The next game on our list is also made by Score. You see, by late 2005, early 2006, Score was looking to do a full series reboot while also still selling the Dragon Ball GT cards. This new game was confusingly called the Dragon Ball Z trading card game. Most fans call it the Dragon Ball Z Re-Z game to try to keep things straight, but it's still confusing. It's a mess. You can tell if cards are for this game by the unique, edgy logo used on the card back and boxes. Look at this thing, it's great. This game featured some of the mechanics of the previous game, but also really stripped things down to their bare essentials. This game, unlike GT, is not compatible with the original Dragon Ball Z collectible card game. These cards are standalone. This game was not received super well. It dumbs down the previous gameplay without really adding anything, and Dragon Ball was just starting to see a lull in popularity, which would last until the release of Dragon Ball Super. I'm not saying like the series was dead or anything, but it was definitely not the craze it had been over the previous decade. Only 3 sets were released for this game, with a 4th planned but never released, though fans can print out text-only versions of those cards. Now, this video isn't really about reviewing these games, but the Dragon Ball Z TCG is probably the weakest release here, outside of the meme that is ani-mayhem. So now it's 2008, and the contract giving Score the rights to Dragon Ball has now expired. Bandai, the license holder, decides it's time to release their own Dragon Ball game, which makes sense since they were already doing very well with the TCG market, thanks mostly to the huge success of the Naruto CCG. This new game would drop the Z in the name and just be called the Dragon Ball collectible card game, since it features cards from all of Dragon Ball's history up to that point. And, it's just a Naruto card game clone. Like, look at the card frames. It's so blatant. It makes sense that you would want to reuse the things that were working in your most popular card game, but the problem here is they went too far. There's very little separating this from the Naruto card game. Part of the issue here is that the game would be really low priority on the list for Bandai, which you can tell by the sheer number of spelling mistakes made on cards. Only 4 sets were released before the game was shadow cancelled, never to be heard from again. Instead of making a lackluster, half-supported Dragon Ball TCG, it might have been a better idea to just release it as a special crossover set in the Naruto TCG. Weirder things have happened. This leads us to the longest period of time without any new Dragon Ball game. From 2009 to 2017, when the Dragon Ball Super card game was released. But there would still be Dragon Ball cards on store shelves. You see, even though it had been gone for 8 years, the original Dragon Ball Z collectible card game was still fairly popular. Fans wanted it back. So it came back, in 2014. Since the rights to the original game were now owned by Panini, they would license the brand back from Bandai to continue the original game like it never went off into strange Dragon Ball GT tangents, though with some changes. First, they renamed the game from the Dragon Ball Z collectible card game to the Dragon Ball Z trading card game, which, hold on, they used that name already. Whatever, nobody remembered that game anyways. They would also update the card frames to be more modern, make some needed gameplay tweaks and simplifications, and add a big, bold, not at all annoying yellow Panini logo to every card. New sets primarily focused on characters not featured heavily in the old game, and the Dragon Ball movies saw a lot of love. The player base for this version of the game was fairly consistent, but Panini massively overestimated demand for some sets, causing major overstock with many boxes still available for pennies on the dollar today. While the game was able to coast along for 3 years, one particular event meant its end. The announcement of a brand new Dragon Ball card game based on the Dragon Ball Super anime, again made by Bandai themselves. So with the exception of the Naruto clone, the rest of the Dragon Ball games were all really unique with gameplay. Nothing else really played like they did. That's not really true for Dragon Ball Super. Instead, it takes successful elements from other card games like Magic, Force of Will, Cardfight Vanguard, and Duel Masters, and throws them into a blender, making something surprisingly new and fresh feeling. Super has been going on strong for 4 years now, despite some road bumps like some really overpowered cards and general power creep, but I don't see any reason for it ending anytime soon. Well, I hope you enjoyed this quick jog through the history of Dragon Ball card games. Let me know if this is a format you think I should do more of. I was thinking maybe we could go over the mess that is the history of the Digimon IP for card games, but let me know if that's something you'd watch. And this channel is still pretty new, so please make sure to subscribe. It's invaluable to helping us grow. And if you've ever played any of these Dragon Ball card games, let me know your experiences down in the comments below. It's really important. I'd love to hear your stories. And check out another video. Why don't you watch that Dragon Ball unboxing I mentioned, or his TCG timeline. Oh god. Also check out our Discord server where you can discuss any number of classic card games. And I'll see you guys next time.